in the longer run, the way to get the lower middle class to become middle and upper middle class is to focus on social goods like healthcare, childcare, child education, uh, school education, higher education, skilling. These are the ways you make them capable of getting a good job, and a good job is the best form of welfare.
Now, another freebie that has been talked about is going back to the old pension scheme.
Yeah.
That is an absolute disaster. Okay, so we know it doesn't, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know which freebie is a freebie and which freebie is good welfare policy.
In the previous video, we spoke about the Indian economy at large, like the GDP, inflation, and jobs. This time around, we dig deeper into other contentious issues. Making India a manufacturing hub has been the dream of many leaders who led India. In recent years, India has also been seen increasingly as an attractive investment destination. But how dire or good is the situation currently for investors? The Economic Times spoke to two prominent economists. Surjit Bhalla, a policy veteran with the experience of having worked with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Economic Advisory Council, and former Reserve Bank of India Governor Raghuram Rajan.
One of the concerns has to be that the body blows inflicted by the demonetization and COVID have disproportionately affected labor-intensive sectors, such as leather, textiles. They haven't recovered. On the other hand, capital-intensive sectors are flourishing. And what that means is, and even the push on construction is favoring capital-intensive sectors like metals, and those are doing very well. That's one reason why we're not creating enough jobs. But if we're not creating enough good jobs, then the middle and lower middle class, which depends on mass jobs, simply is not doing well. And you can see it, for example, in the fact that two-wheeler purchases have not recovered to the pre-pandemic level, while four-wheeler passenger car purchases have exceeded that and are going forward fast. The bottom line is that there is a true K-shaped recovery from the pandemic, which, I see government spokesmen dismiss it, but it is there in the data if they want to look at it. And that means inequality in jobs is inequality in incomes is a worry, and this affects even the part of India which thinks it's immune, because it slows down demand.
And as far as consumption inequality is concerned, real consumption inequality, for the first time, consumption inequality, real consumption has declined in India, and this is not to be observed anywhere else in the world. ये कहीं होता नहीं है कि inequality या तो stable रहती है या ऊपर जाती है. In India, it's actually declined, according to the latest HCS survey. And another one that I don't see any reason why the government should not be releasing the unit level data for HCS, so we can further study this inequality question. But bottom line, very important to know, because of the welfare policies of this government, subsidy policies, that you have find an economy where consumption inequality has gone down. Okay. First time in the world anywhere. Income inequality, we can speculate on. Okay. And you will speculate on something, I will speculate on something, etc. Terrible state of affairs where we just sit there and speculate like we speculate on wealth. That's not worth it. So what you should be doing, I should be doing, I am doing, is to really increase the pressure on the government. भाई एक income distribution survey करो, और ये नहीं कि एक साल में करेंगे फिर 10 साल के बाद. Annual income distribution survey should be there.
For foreign investment, it's not so much subsidies. After all, subsidies will, upfront, will go away over time. What you really need is to tell them that there will be a sustained environment, which is welcoming and which they can flourish in. So, apart from, making it easier to do business, you have to make government policy more predictable and less, subject to whims and fancy. One day I wake up and I say this tariff is going to go up, and then another day I sort of say if you're a foreign producer you can't do this. That kind of change of the terms on which they came in is something that foreign investors worry about because it can make their whole economics unsustainable. In today's world, we are dealing with very thin margins. A change in one tariff or the other can make what was a viable business totally unviable. So we need to, have more sustained, steady business practice, business policy, I should say, and make it easier and easier. And that is important not just for foreigners; it's for our own domestic business. Businesses are worried about government changing the terms on them and privileging the tax authorities to raise demands all the time. Eventually these demands get thrown out in court, but it's 5 or 10 years of uncertainty. So what we need to do is take a look. It'll be very helpful for our own businesses, but also helpful to foreign businesses. I would basically say focus on what is good for India and Indian business, and the foreigners will come. You don't need to create special privileges for them, and in fact, it's wrong to create special privileges for them. But don't create special impediments for them also. That just because they don't sort of know how to navigate the corridors of power, they're at a disadvantage.
The hesitation has been expanded, particularly by CMI data, where you don't have the data. So they have so many investment projects, this, that. And, their data, particularly on labor force participation rates and other areas, are quite suspect. But I think at the same time, and what else had happened is that, look, the real interest rates have gone up because inflation has come down, interest rates have gone up, and real interest rates are going up. And that is one of the important reasons why the private sector has not been as forthcoming. They want to look at. The third thing, and which government should really look at, is why is it, for example, in our taxation for indirect taxation, GST, etc., hotel expenses, okay? Tourism is a very important part that we also think is a very important part of our development and growth. But, the kind of rates, GST rates for consumption for tourists coming to India is very, very high compared to what it should be. So there are several distortions that are present in India and in the Indian economy. And hopefully the new government, whichever new government that is, will take a hard look as to, then there is, in terms of foreign investment, that the foreign investment has gone down in India. And that has to do with, I think, one rule and regulation that they came up with is that firms will no longer will have jurisdiction if it's a British firm in England, and here it all has to be decided. So I think uncertainty, especially for foreign investors, has gone up. Thankfully, it never got implemented.
Yeah.
But the government came up with a bright idea that your credit card spending abroad will be taxed.
Yeah.
Effectively taxed.
Mhm.
I mean, so no government is perfect.
Yeah.
This government is not perfect. They've made some. Thankfully, that policy did not get implemented.
Yeah.
And has been kicked. The can has been kicked down the road. But look, I think our tax rates are too high.
Mhm.
Our income tax rates, direct income tax rates are too high. And we've got a real distortion in our investment tax rate, which is now 25% and 42%. So अब ये भी uncertainty आ गई है. Okay, should I show it as business income? And we need, so 100% we need reforms of our direct tax code.
Mhm.
Okay, to be consistent with the corporate. I don't think our corporate taxes are going up. Okay.
Mhm.
I think that policy has proved to be very, very worthwhile. And we are now competitive. There are these other hurdles and problems. And we have to leave something for the new government to do, no? So hopefully they will correct some of these major anomalies, such that, on the other hand, on foreign investment, they've been quite successful in getting major players like Apple and Tesla into India. And, this is a beginning. In a few years, already Apple, a fair proportion are being now assembled in India and exported.
I do think that the government extending the free food grain and the fact that Narega payments are still very high suggests the distress that I talked about earlier. The government will never directly acknowledge the distress, but indirectly these moves suggest there is distress, and the lower middle class are suffering. Now, in the longer run, the way to get the lower middle class to become middle and upper middle class is to focus on social goods like healthcare, childcare, child education, uh, school education, higher education, skilling. These are the ways you make them capable of getting a good job, and a good job is the best form of welfare. So, what we need to do is think about how to do this. Now, the path to this may imply some transfers. So, when you make a transfer to a poor family, they can spend a little more on their children, better food, maybe a slightly better school if they're taking their kids to private school. I mean, one of the effects of this distress is you see many more poor families putting their kids back in government school because they can't afford the private school they were taking their children to. So I think targeted welfare schemes that offer people the chance to build their human capital are, in fact, going to be good in the longer run.
So as far as freebies are concerned, or even food, which is not a freebie, is very good, that there are problems with it if they go to 2/3 of the population. So now we know, now another freebie that has been talked about is going back to the old pension scheme.
Yeah.
That is an absolute disaster. Okay. So we know it doesn't, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know which freebie is a freebie and which freebie is good welfare policy. Education, okay, health, whatever things for the environment. If you are subsidizing something that is good for the environment, that's not a freebie. That's good welfare policy, good economic policy. Why call it welfare? Good economic policy. So what we should be after is good economic, sensible economic policy. And, freebies have no role. What you and I understand by a freebie shouldn't be part of the policy. Each policy has to be questioned
Mhm.
for its efficacy
Mhm.
in, now, since we are talking about welfare policies, how much do the poor get of the money is meant for the poor, how much leakage there is, how much corruption there is, etc. Just like the question we asked on industrial policy, how much corruption, same questions should be asked, whether it's for the rich or for the poor, whether it's for the industrialist or it's for the farmer. We don't ask enough questions of the policies for the farmer.
Mhm.
Why isn't it? Let me ask you on freebie. The biggest freebie going around are rich farmers not paying any taxes.
Mhm.
How difficult it is for the government to institute a policy that if you have more than 10 lakhs income,
Mhm.
to pay tax, not the rest of the farmers. अच्छा उसको 20 लाख कर दो यार.
Mhm.
So that's the biggest freebie going around for rich farmers, not for poor farmers.
Correct.
So we know what's a good freebie and what is a freebie and what is not a freebie. And freebies should have no role in a modern economy like India.